Welcome to episode 18 of the Sports Geek podcast. On today's episode, we'll look at how the Auckland Blues activated their digital cheer squad using True Blue HQ, and we'll chat to the Brisbane Lions, talking about coaching change. One legend out, another legend in.
Welcome to the Sports Geek podcast, the podcast built for the sports digital marketer. And now, here's your host, whose professional sports career was tragically cut short at age 17 due to a lack of ability, Sean Callanan.
Thanks, DJ Joel. Yes, getting cut from the Ballarat Nuggets at age 17 by then coach of the Miners, but Al Westover, who went on to win a couple of championships in the NBL, still cuts pretty deep. But that said, I'm quite happy where I've landed. Professional sports obviously wasn't for me on the court. It's definitely something off the court with the Sports Geek. First of all, I want to say a big thank you to the people who have downloaded the podcast, like yourself, and also the ones that have left a review on iTunes. So a bit of a shout out to Brock Tune, who left a one on the US store, Pat Davis, Flavelson, In All Airness, again, look, Adam, great podcast, check out In All Airness. Francis McCarthy, again, everyone who has left a iTunes review, very much appreciate it. You can simply go to sportsgeekhq.com/iTunes to leave a quick review. It's very much appreciated and actually helps spread the word, make sure that this content is being used. So, for today's episode, we chat with good friend of mine and client James Rigby from the Auckland Blues about how they activated Digital Cheer Squad on Grandstand. And also we talked to Jared Price from the Brisbane Lions and how they handled and managed the recent coaching change where one club legend was ousted in Michael Voss and another one came in Justin Lepich. But first, here's our interview with James Rigby on ABC Grandstand, and stay tuned at the end. Find out how far did Rocky actually run in Rocky 2.
Sean Callanan joins us from Sports Geek HQ, the digital sports guru, once again to talk to us about sport in the outer atmosphere of the digital media. Hey, Sean, how you going?
G'day, Francis. I'm good, thanks.
Don't know where to watch last night. It was pretty tough going, having the second screen experience and also the third screen experience and trying to watch the NRL, the AFL, and talk about it. I needed to be an octopus.
Yeah, it does get a bit that way, and effectively, social media can be something that help you change the channel and the channel flicker. But
I have adopted your policy, and I think it's the right one, not to tweet during the games now. Just to watch it, be in the experience, and try not to engage in that, because I'm finding that I'm missing stuff, and I don't want to.
Yeah, there is a tendency. I mean, I'm a bit the same, because if you're constantly looking at the screen, at the small screen, if you're flicking through your feed, whether it be Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, seeing what's happening. Yeah, you do read, something happened, you have to look back up. Try to involve yourself in the game, and then, the quarter time breaks or when they flick to a goal, flick to the ads, take your attention there then. So,
got to have a disciplined Twitter game plan.
It does. If you actually want to follow the game, because you can end up just be following the commentary. And forgetting that there's a game on, and to a certain degree, if you're not super invested in the game as a fan, that's a nice way to consume the game. But if you're a fan of one of the teams playing, whether it be the NRL last night or the AFL last night, you really would want to be following the game.
You want to be in the moment with the game. Well, it was both games were enthralling to watch. There's no doubt about it. There's plenty of talk about it on Twitter too. The Super Rugby season's been come and gone, but the rugby goes on and on with the Rugby Championship. But catching up with someone this morning who's talking to us about how Super Rugby's using digital media to build its brand and getting closer and more connected with its fan base.
Yeah, so on the line we've got James Rigby from the Auckland Blues, or the Blues as they're known in the Super Rugby. G'day, James. You there?
Morning, Sean. How you going?
Good, thanks, mate. Last week we chatted with Chris Freet from University of Miami about a loyalty program they had, and I wanted to talk to James about the one that he ran, which is True Blue HQ, which was a different focus to what Chris had from a loyalty, which was a swiping the card and attending and buying merchandise. This one was purely on social. And rewarded the fans for what they did online on Facebook and Twitter. So, James, do you want to first of all just give us a little bit of feedback on, one, how the fans took up True Blue HQ and what the response was when you launched it earlier in the season?
Yeah, sure thing. We've been working with Sean for the past season on True Blue HQ, which it's a sort of a gamification model where you get points for following our fans on Twitter, following us on Facebook, and retweeting our messages and that sort of thing. And it's the first season we've done it, but the response that we had from our fans online was fantastic. I mean, we trended on the first day that we launched it. We ended up getting about 500, just over 500 fans on there. And the feedback we got was tremendous. They absolutely loved it. It ticked a lot of boxes for us in terms of helping leverage a sponsor, really sort of engaging with our fans, and also driving all our kind of key messages throughout the season. So, yeah, it was fantastic.
So what were you asking the fans to do, James? How did they, when they came to it, what was a simple modus operandi that they got involved with?
So when they logged in through their Twitter or Facebook account, they got a couple of hints to start off with. So that you get points for, say, following some of our players on Twitter. So and you'd also get points for liking us on Facebook. But there were also kind of the things built in where there were hidden hints. So if you sort of retweeted us or mentioned us on Twitter, you'd get points for that. So fans were kind of constantly going back, logging in to check their score and kind of competing with other fans to see who was the biggest kind of online fan, really.
And so one of the things we did discuss last week with Chris around how do you reward fans in a loyalty type of system, and this being a social media one. And for me, the fans who are following on social media, and we were just talking about them when you're watching the game, it's something intrinsic, like the intrinsic value of showing that you're a fan and showing you're part of something bigger. And that's a lot of the reason why they're on. They want to show their support. They want to follow the players and say congratulations and feel like part of the team. And I think that's something that worked really well with the guys at the Blues, is that they tied the rewards that they were putting in into True Blue HQ into that motivation. So they weren't saying, hey, tweet about us and you're going to get a cap or you're going to get a prize of some sort. They really just leveraged on that. So they ran things like fan events, and got the fans together for a special training session. And the thing was that the fans actually started doing that without James's involvement. Like, it just started to evolve that these fans started to meet at the games because they were following each other on Twitter and extending that conversation. So, James, you want to tell us a little bit about how those events and how that effectively, those fans sort of started congregating both at online and then at the games?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it was a pretty organic sort of way it came about. We ran a couple of events. First, we invited a couple of our most kind of vocal online fans to come along to a captain's run, which was closed to the public. So the day before a big game, the team usually go to Eden Park, which is our home ground. I'm not sure if you've been there, but it's a fantastic stadium. So we invited 20 of our kind of most passionate sort of online followers to come into the ground where it was just them and the team, and they were on the ground watching the guys go through their moves, and afterwards all the team would come over and they chatted for about half an hour with the fans. So for them it was an incredible experience to get a lot closer to the action. It wasn't purely an online thing. We were really trying to get those fans that were passionate about the team online and bring them offline. That kind of started off a bit of a trend. All these guys were talking online, and then without any of our involvement, they started kind of congregating in the west end of Eden Park, and they'd all want to catch up beforehand, have a bit of a chat about the game. They'd bring massive billboards with hashtag True Blue HQ and all this sort of online kind of lingo that they'd use, and they'd all kind of cheer together and tweet together from that spot. And we also ran a couple of other opportunities through the season where we invited them to a corporate lounge to watch the game. All you had to do was just be a part of True Blue HQ to enter. And we invite 20 or so fans to come and sit in the lounge. It was all catered for. All the guys that were either injured or weren't playing that evening would kind of sit in the lounge and have a chat with them and watch the game. And so as a fan, they were thrilled, and it really helped us as well because they're passionate online fans. They were tweeting about it, they were posting pictures on Instagram, so it really kind of started spreading the message. And at the final home game of the season, we had a bit of a big party where we got them all T-shirts with hashtag True Blue on the front and the sponsors' logos on the back, and all the players again kind of turned up and had a great evening. So as a fan, they were thrilled. It was a really kind of nice experience for them.
We obviously hit the right mark with them because it was organic and it took off of its own accord, which is fantastic. I'm just interested in the diagnostics. How do you actually collate the information to make sure that you're finding the people that are your target market for this?
Well, effectively, that's what the system is. I mean, so we developed it at SportsGeek. We initially ran it with the Minnesota Timberwolves. We've run it with some of the AFL teams here. So effectively, because the fans are logging in and using their social networks, they're using both Facebook and Twitter. James has the data from behind the scenes to see which fans have liked their Facebook post, have shown the most engagement on the Facebook page, and who have tweeted the most and used the hashtags the most. So he's not just picking a random fan who has just recently retweeted and just set up an account. He can see that the certain fans have been very active and are very social, and and again, because they're checking in at the stadium, so they might be checking in at Eden Park and those kind of things. You're starting to get that profile of the fan that is doing what they want them to do. So,
James, has it also changed your perception of what your fans are or who they are?
Yeah, it has actually. Yeah, it's a lot more of a diverse fan base than we first thought. Rugby. Our main target market is the kind of the 24 to 34-year-old sort of male, but there were heaps of females that were getting involved as well. It was across like a whole sort of spectrum. So it was pretty interesting. Yeah.
And the good thing is that you've now got that core and doing things like running a fan of the week and rewarding those fans and saying thanks a lot. They were profiled on the site. The system effectively trained those fans who were just dipping their toe in the water, didn't quite know what they had to do. They followed the steps, and then they saw some of these rewards, whether it be turning up to events or at least just having more people to chat to. And the good thing was, because all the rewards and all the engagement was, just focused on the fan, the sponsor that was involved, which is a local real estate sponsor, got a lot of love because the fans knew that the system was in place because of them. So they were always tweeting to Barfoot and Thompson, the local real estate agent, that thanks a lot, we love and what you're doing, and they were getting lots of recognition, which is exactly what they wanted. They didn't want to be selling a message, but they wanted to be shown that they were supporting the team. Amazing story, James. Sounds like a really successful program. Good luck with next year's campaign, and thanks for being on the show this morning.
Thanks, really appreciate it. Have a good day, guys.
James Digby, Digital Media Manager at the Blues, the Auckland Blues in Super Rugby, with their True Blue HQ project on digital media and the social space. Sean, where can we find you?
You can find me at sportsgeekhq.com or SportsGeek in iTunes.
And just quickly, tell us that Rocky story that you were telling me before.
Things that you'd need in media. Someone has gone and mapped Rocky's run from Rocky 2, and if you check it out, he actually ran 50 kilometres around Philadelphia that day. So a fine effort, and then he still went and beat Apollo Creed. So
he was
no wonder.
Just tuning up.
Exactly.
50K run. Mapped my run from the movies. I like that a lot. Sean Callanan from Sports Geek HQ with us here on Grandstand Breakfast.
Find all Sports Geek podcasts at sportsgeekhq.com/SGP.
Thanks to James there for joining me on ABC Grandstand with Francis Leach. I've also included an infographic that James produced for the guys at Barfoot and Thompson. James did a really good job in activating and building brand awareness about Barfoot and Thompson using Digital Cheer Squad. So you can actually check out that implementation at digitalcheersquad.com/truebluehq. And the infographic will be in the show notes. So it'll be sportsgeekhq.com/18. Just some of the stats. They had over 200 tweets of fans explicitly saying thanks to Barfoot and Thompson on Twitter. We just simply gave them the tweet button to prompt them to do it. Over 350 retweets of Barfoot and Thompson, and over 1,300 tweets mentioning the True Blue HQ activation and mentioning Barfoot and Thompson in the process. So very successful and very stacks of fan feedback that they love the activation. Look forward to doing it again next year. And if you want any more information about Digital Cheer Squad, as it is one of our products that we developed, please check out digitalcheersquad.com or contact me. So my next guest is Jared Price from the Brisbane Lions, and I had a chat to him about managing the fans' reaction when there's a coaching change. So this is Jared Price from the Brisbane Lions on Sports Geek Podcast.
I'm very lucky and I'm thankful to welcome a good friend of mine from the Brisbane Lions. He's the digital media manager for the Brisbane Lions, which is in the AFL. Jared Price, welcome to the Sports Geek podcast.
Thanks for having me, Sean.
So first of all, just everyone is always asking me how teams are set up and how people end up in the sports digital space. Can you give us a little bit of background of, one, what your role is, how you got there at the Lions, and what you're primarily looking to do at the Lions?
Yeah, no worries. So my role is digital media manager at the Lions. I'm responsible for social media, web properties, online video, and also our mobile apps. And that's essentially my role. I have a marketing background, so my previous roles have been in the marketing industry. Before joining the Lions, I was working for an IT company called Melbourne IT that specialised in web hosting, domain names, those sorts of IT services. So I guess whilst I had the marketing background, I also got a bit of understanding of IT and digital media through working for that company. And then I've always had a passion for AFL. My dad's Victorian, so there's always been a strong family presence there for AFL. So growing up watching, playing, and following it pretty closely. So I guess the option to combine, a passion of mine with a career has been pretty lucky. And at the Lions, we're, I guess, quite a small digital team.
So what's the makeup of your team from a bodies on the ground kind of thing?
Yeah, so we are part of the communications department, and it's interesting if you look at a lot of the other AFL clubs, it varies in terms of where the digital team sits. Some are in the commercial, some are in communications. I think there's in one club where they sit in the finance department.
Yeah. So it generated primarily out of the comms team?
Yeah, yes, that's right. And at the moment, there's probably three of us in the digital team. There's myself. We have a Lions TV producer that looks after all our filming and editing of our videos.
Yep.
And we also have a website editor, if you like, that produces all our online articles, match reports, and is responsible for keeping that engine churning, if you like, with all our articles going through our website and also our mobile app.
Okay. I mean, that is a pretty common setup of having, the content producer, the journalist style person, the beat writer. Video is one area that a lot of teams have been really feeling the crunch in the last 18 months, 2 years, and starting to get dedicated resources because there's so much, so many fans are crying out for more video content. So it's definitely been a growing space, and I guess coming from Melbourne IT, there's no concerns that the Lions will ever lose their domain, as you would know that space coming from the Melbourne IT area.
No, we've still got some good connections there, so yeah, no danger of losing lions.com.au.
Yeah, I don't know if you did hear the story that the Dallas Cowboys, for a little point in time, did forget to renew their name. And unfortunately, their website went down because someone did not pay the bill. So it's always important to, when you do get that domain renewal notification notice, that it's definitely one you have to pay. Otherwise, your site can go down in a quick, quite unexpectedly if you're not following up with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what I want to do is follow up. You've had a couple of really big events in the last couple of months from a coaching point of view, and I just want to get a bit of your feedback of, one, how you handled it, how the fans reacted, and sort of some of the things you've learnt. So for those who don't know, the Brisbane Lions had a departing coach, and Michael Voss, one of your club's legends, was not renewed for a coaching contract. It's the best way of putting it. He wasn't sacked, he just wasn't renewed. And he departed. I think it was 3 rounds to go in the AFL season.
That's right.
There was a lot of fan feedback. Obviously, Vossi being a club legend and a fan favourite. What was it like from the digital team's point of view, trying to manage that story?
Oh, look, it was obviously a very interesting time. I think with anything with a football club, there's always a lot of passion. The fans really do love the club, want to see it succeed, and want the best for the club. And having someone like Michael Voss, who was a premiership captain, had been with the club for a very long time. There's obviously a lot of people that are very passionate about him and are very passionate supporters of him. So, it was an interesting time. And I guess our role was just to, stay across what the fans were saying, and then also get out messages when we could. I guess one of the challenges that you have when you've got the official club accounts is that you need to put out information once it's, I guess, been approved and verified and is 100%. I guess, the flip side with the media is that they can look to start the conversation and put it out there, and then sort of, track the story as it goes along. Whereas with the club, we need to probably be a little bit more tentative, I guess, and not, we can't sort of put information out there until it is official. So in some cases, we are a little bit behind the media. But, I guess we like to think of it as that, but we're the source of truth, and that it's, an official club account and it's an official statement from the club. So, I guess our role during the whole process was just monitoring the social media, what fans were saying, what the comments were, trying to get a gauge for the tone, if you like, so what was positive, what was negative, and then, distribute any messages that we had once they were ready to go out.
I mean, the point you make there about the fact that the media, when they ever get a whiff of anything, of a change, they're going to automatically run with it. And it's very hard sometimes from a club environment. A lot of the fans don't realise some of those checks and balances that you were just going through there, that, you've got to get, if the board has got to sign something off or those kind of things, you can't just go and say, yes, this is happening, even if it is being reported as facts on a media point of view. And it's very, that's where it takes a lot of savvy not to respond to all the fans, because you've got to have that company line that you can then put out the message. Is there potentially, looking back at that situation, and is there a way that you could have done it potentially better or streamline the process from your point of view?
Look, I think whenever hindsight's a wonderful thing,
yep.
And would be good to have been able to get onto the front foot a little bit earlier. But in a lot of cases, you just got to work with the cards that you get dealt. And I think at the time, we did a pretty good job. There were quite a few long days once the story broke. I know my boss, who's the GM of comms, probably didn't go home for 2 or 3 days, just trying to, manage and get in front of the story and make sure that we're, controlling the message and putting out there, what's actually happening and what the plan is. So, it was a challenging time, but I think we handled it, reasonably well. And now we've got a new coach on board, so it's great to sign him this week, and hopefully good things ahead.
Yeah, well, that was one of the things. I think there's a lot of people. a lot of people listening to the Sports Geek podcast understand it because they're in sport, and they do know that the footy department or the sports department for a lot of the clubs effectively run some of the messaging, and so that you might not get that information as timely as you would like. And some of these things happen so quickly. You've got to be that agile. To be able to handle these kind of things on the fly. I did want to go to the Justin Lepage signing and sort of how you handled that. You were probably at least had some more timing to plan that kind of thing. Going up from one end of losing a club great and dealing with that fan feedback and effectively being that spot where you're being the fan's friend and trying to soothe those upset fans, to now going to a really positive announcement like signing of Justin Lepage as the new coach. How's the fan reaction and feedback to that announcement been?
Yeah, look, it's all been really positive. The Lions fans would obviously be very familiar with Justin Lepage, playing in the similar sort of era to Michael Voss, and a member of our Hall of Fame, so well known to fans. Has coached at the club previously as an assistant coach for a few years, and then went to Melbourne to further develop his coaching skills. So it's great to have him back on board. And we were probably a touch slow, like it was being reported in the media before us. But again, we sort of hands tied a little bit in that we can't go out there with an official tweet until contracts are signed and everything's sort of ticked off. But once all that was finalised, we did get out there. We tried to, take the fans behind the scenes. And we put some pictures up there from Leper in meetings with our football manager, already sort of looking at the list and getting to work straight away. And then we've just tried to make it, get as much information out as we can. So, we've put up some videos around the media conferences. We put up a wrap to start with, and then the full extended version later in the day. We've done, web skins and Facebook covers and all the like there. And then in the coming weeks, we'll look to roll out a few other campaigns, like, we will do a Ask Leper campaign on social media where fans can sort of tweet their questions in and get to know more about the coach and what his plans are for the club.
And that's the thing with the new cycle, the way it is, the traditional media will jump all over it and do the initial interviews in the announcement around, Justin Lepage being signed, but your fans are always going to be clamouring for more. And I guess that's the thing that you're trying to leverage, the extended press conference, the extended video interview with Justin, all of that kind of thing, because all your fans, will be insatiable for getting new content from your club, and that's where you can really take advantage, because they're still going to want, traditional media will fall away. They'll move to the next news cycle, to the next story, especially in a big week like Grand Final week. Whereas your fans, you're serving your fans, and they definitely do want that content.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's probably helped us a little bit in that the news has come in what would probably be a quieter time for us, not being involved in finals, so it sort of helped spike our traffic and spike interest about us during a quieter time, which is great.
Well, that leads me to another question, because you are now moving into the off-season, and effectively I do laugh chatting with people in sport and then people outside of sport, and they think, the season's over, the Lions have gone, so you guys are all on holidays. It's a common misconception outside the industry, but sometimes this is your busiest time. There's things like rolling out memberships and those kind of things, and then the planning starts for next season. So do you have a plan? Having someone like Justin is obviously really good for you from an off-season point of view, but what do you look to do in the off-season to keep the fans engaged? Because again, the traditional media starts stepping away from the day-to-day reporting of football. We have the buzz of trade week and things like that generate a lot of traffic. But what's your plan for that off-season engagement with Lions fans? Yeah,
look, it is interesting. It does sort of seem to keep rolling for us. There's never a dull moment. So I guess, for us, the next few weeks will be around coach, and then that sort of leads almost straight into trade period. So we'll be looking to try and build on our coverage of trade period from last year. We would do a fan cast. We've got a fan and also an AFL journal that covers us. Just chatting about the club and what's happening and interviewing players and staff. So we'll do a trade period edition of Fancast where they'll discuss, they can sort of discuss rumours and possible moves and how that might work for the club. So having that, I guess, gives them a little bit more freedom to talk about those rumours and what might happen and how that might affect. Because it's sort of coming from a fan's perspective. So we'll look to, keep that going. And then sort of once we get through October, we sort of jump back straight into pre-season. And for us, our 5-year plus players are heading over to Arizona for an altitude camp.
Yep.
So we'll look to generate a lot of content around that. So we'll be sending resources over to film and follow the guys. So for both videos and social media posts, but also sort of web articles and photo galleries and the like there. So that'll sort of get us through till Christmas, which is then it sort of gets a little bit quieter through the Christmas period, and then we look to come back fresh in January.
Oh, terrific. Well, very good luck for that period. Are you going to head over to Arizona? Have you started your pre-season training to be able to lug the equipment at high altitude?
Yeah, I am going to head over to Arizona, and I've been told I need to do a little bit more training. And they said, it's just, they said you'll be fine. It's just like running, but you're breathing through a straw.
Yeah, pretty much. I think you probably should talk to Luca from Carlton. Apparently he was taking shots of the players as they were going up the mountain, packing up his gear, running ahead, taking more shots of the players. They practically should have rookie listed him. He was doing such a good job getting up the mountain. So he set the bar pretty high for people working in digital, going over and working high altitude.
Well, yeah, we might be having a little bit of a dig at the players if, we're going to carry gear and all sorts up the mountain. They're just going to take themselves up, and that's it.
Exactly. All right, well, best of luck for the off-season, and thanks for joining me on Sports Geek Podcast.
Thanks for having me, Sean.
You're listening to Sports Geek Podcast. Send us a tweet to @SportsGeek.
That's it for another episode of Sports Geek Podcast. This is episode 18, sportsgeekhq.com/18. You get all the show notes and link from today's show. Thanks to James Rigby from the Auckland Blues and Jared Price from the Brisbane Lions. Just a reminder, if you are listening to this today, today is the AFL Grand Final, and I'm shipping this podcast out. You can follow the hashtag AFLGF. Next week will be the NRL Grand Final, NRLGF. So if you want to keep an eye on the sports mad Australians, you'll definitely see that trending on Twitter over the next 2 weeks. Another reminder, you can check out, I've cleaned up the Sports Geek podcast episode list. You can actually see all the terrific guests that I've had on over the 18 episodes. We've just ticked over the 10-hour mark as far as content goes. If you haven't gone back in the back catalogue, I suggest you do. Some great people that I've interviewed and been on the podcast, and very thankful that they did. Another one more thing is I've got a second podcast. I really caught the podcasting bug, and I'm doing it with a few mates of mine. It's not directly on sports, but it is on business. A few mates of mine get around and talk about business topics that might be relevant to you guys or girls or anybody listening. It's called Beers, Blokes and Business.com. You can find that on all your good podcast catchers and on iTunes. Also planning to do a Ask Sports Geek episode, so please send in your questions. You can send them in via Twitter. You can use the Speak Pipe module and send in an audio one, or you can use the old-fashioned way of sending me an email, sean@sportsgeekhq.com. I'd love to have a few questions and dig in and do an episode pretty much answering your questions. That's it for today. The noise you can hear in the sounds of the game happening right now is actually from 2011 when I was at a New York Yankees game on one of my Sports Geek trips, and this is Yankees fans trying to rally the Yankees to make a comeback, and they did in the bottom of the 13th. That's it from me. My name is Sean Callanan from Sports Geek. #SportsBiz, #Digisport, #out.
Please leave a review on iTunes. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/iTunes. Find all Sports Geek podcasts at sportsgeekhq.com/SGP. Thanks for listening to the Sports Geek Podcast.